Alright, testing. Okay, so it's Mark, and sad to say, this week I have a bit of a cold, so so my voice might not be super loud today. But let's see, where are we? So last week we worked on some eyeballs. So we painted our 3 eyeballs, and also we modified these as well. So what did we do? We drilled some holes in there. And but we didn't remove the back parts, these little stems where we poured our resin in, so we have to do that today. And by the way, welcome everybody to the show. I see there's some new people here, and also of course Beard and Janet are here. So but for those who are new, this is I think part 5 of making this puppet. And so this was our design, which is our mutated frog sort of character. And so tonight we're going to adjust these eyes a little bit. And let me do this. Move the camera a bit closer. Focus things. Alright. So Misery has a cold also. It got really cold here recently. I think it was down to like 48 degrees or so. Do this so you guys can see what I'm doing here, hopefully. Alright, so we got some clay, by the way, but we're just going to take some wire cutters or wire snips, and we're going to cut these off. Just snipping it. And the back parts of the eyes, you know, I thought maybe I should like spend some time and clean this up, but I'm not too worried about that because I'm gonna have clay covering the back parts of the eyes, and so this little bit of roughness won't be an issue. And then also we're gonna do that with this one. Yeah, so it seems like you guys have got some projects going on, which is nice. Alright, so we got here's the mold that we use to make the eyeballs. Let's see here. Oops. So that's what we poured the resin in, and we used some enamel paints last week to paint these up. Where are we? There we go. And also we drilled holes inside the center of each of these, and that allows us to insert a tool like this into the eyeballs. Let's see if it works here. So you can kind of see how that works. Now we can manipulate the eye with just a sharp tool like this for animation. Lost an eyeball there. Where'd it go? Oh my gosh. The eyeball escaped. Actually did lose it. Where'd it go? Where are you, eyeball? Come back here. Couldn't have gone very far. Where the heck did it go? Alright, I gotta find it. What the heck? Out of here. There we go. Okay. Get my eyeballs back there. So here you can see an assortment of clay. And this is actually 2 different types of clays. These are Van Aken clay. Let's see if we can see the brand. But you can see here, so we've got the Van Aken label on there. And we've also got this, which is some, I believe, Avalon clay from Tony Marathu. Tony Marathu worked at Wolverton Studios and had a lot of this clay. And this clay is historically kind of amazing that I actually have some, because they use this in the Wolverton Studios to work on the California Raisins and the Domino's Pizza Noid, as well as The Adventures of Mark Twain. So this is the actual clay they used from that time period. This is actually like 20 plus years old clay here, so it's kind of cool that I have that. And let's see, so Misery is asking about, so that's what people did, stab the eyeball to move it around. Didn't know that. Yep, that's exactly how they do it. That's the trick. And so you just drill a very fine hole in the center, and you can't really see it, you know, from the camera because we painted it black. But here is what it looks like. And you know, I wish this camera would be a little bit brighter. It seems really dark, but you can kind of see what it looks like. Okay, I'm gonna zoom out a bit, see if I can get back here. Back here like this. So we have our clay, and so what we need to do tonight is we need to mix up some clay, and it needs to match our design. So here's our design. And so it's really pretty easy to do this, but we're going to just take the clay and see which one looks, you know, obviously the most similar to what we need. And here's some Van Aken brand blue clay that I've got. And I would say that this is pretty much the color, but it's too dark. So we've got some white clay to lighten it. And now, comparing these two colors of Avalon and Van Aken, like I say, it's probably hard for you guys to tell. Let me see if I can get some more light here. But there is a slight difference in color. And this one here, I do believe, is closer to what we need. So I'm going to use this in white. I'm going to set the other clay aside for now. And to make our colors, we could do one of two things, and we could either melt it down using a double boiler, but I have a limited space in my area here to do that, so what I've got is a pasta roller machine. We're going to use this tonight, and it's kind of fascinating how this actually does work. I've got also some baby wipes. Baby wipes are something that I use a lot because once you start getting dust and whatnot on your pasta roller, or you get old clay that builds up inside here, you want to kind of keep it clean because you want to make sure that the final clay that you have is pure. You know, you don't want to have dirt in there or anything. So we want to clean the bottom, make sure that the bottom part doesn't have a buildup of other colors like maybe red or purple or something. I think the last color I used in here was blue anyway, but still, we want to make sure it's nice and clean. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Get things clean. Sometimes you roll your clay through there and you get like a giant streak of some other color. And these are great for cleaning your hands here as well, because my hands will probably get pretty yucky. So the way we're going to do this is just going to take some clay. And let me get a paper towel first. This clay becomes very greasy over time. The older your clay, or the longer your clay sits around, it tends to leach out the oils from the inside and it comes onto the outside. Alright. So I've got a, this here is like an icing, cake icing tool that you can kind of spread your icing on with. And I use that to cut my clay up like this. Just kind of slice off a piece like this. Alright. So how much are we going to need is the question though. I'm not really sure how much we're going to need yet, but it's probably going to be maybe twice as much as this. Something in there. There. So we had to figure that we're going to add white to it and lighten the color. The other thing that we want to do is we want to have a little extra, because there are different shades of blue in our character. And so I want to take what I've got here, what I'm going to mix up here, make a the darkest color out of it, take some of that out of here, and then I want to mix up lighter shades of that. So I want to break off chunks of what I've created, essentially. And we can see kind of, you know, like how close it is by sticking our clay on our design, just to see, you know, how much lighter this has to become. So we're going to periodically do that. Now with this, I'm just going to flatten it out with my fingers. And so this is kind of like, you know, how they made swords in Japan, right? Like in the old days when they made really good samurai swords. They would take like this dust that was essentially mined from certain mountains in Japan, and then they would like melt it down to make it into a sword. But they would add like carbon to it to make it really strong. And in order to mix the carbon in with steel, you know, I mean, you're trying to melt steel, and in the process of melting it, you're trying to, like, you know, you can't just melt it into a soup or something like that. You know, it's still fairly solid when it's just, you know, red hot. So they would fold it over. They would use this folding technique. So it's similar to this, where you take your steel and your carbon and you stick them together. And you would think that it would take forever to mix these two colors up together. And it kind of does, I guess, but there's this multiplier effect of using these pasta rollers, where you roll your clay through once and then you fold it over. And so, you know, you have 2 folds. And then you fold that over, and then 2 times 2 is 4, so you have 4 folds just by folding it over once. Fold it over again, and it's 4 times 4, which is 16 folds. Fold it over again, 16 times 16 is 32. Fold that over, and then you have 64 folds, and then 128. So you're constantly multiplying the amount of folds, and it adds up really fast. So if you folded it over 100 times through the pasta roller, and then fold that over, you know, you'd have like 100,000 folds of the 2 colors. So it does work, but it takes a little bit of time to do. So we're just going to kind of push it through here, roll it through. Alright, so we got our long flat sheet. So I just fold it over. Roll it through. And fold it over. Roll it again. So we're going to keep doing this until we get the right shade of blue. You can, you know, fold it twice if you want to, or squish it in between folds, or there's no real rules or anything. So Randy says he just pours melted clay on his wooden stage and then scrapes it up for the next thing. Yeah, Will Vinton was... He really liked everything to be clay. Much to the dismay of some of the animators and set builders. I think it's cool though. I think having all clay sets is kind of neat. I like the look of it, but a lot of people disliked the fact that Will Vinton used to always be so puritanical about clay sets and stuff. Legend has it anyway. I'm not going to name names or anything. I've heard from certain people. Well, I would say, you know, some Misery is asking how long does it take to fully mix the colors. Well, I think we're pretty much just about there now, actually. We're pretty close. Almost there. Believe it or not. Because like I say, the more that you fold it, you're multiplying those folds. And it adds up super quick. So here's the original blue. And here's the new shade, alright? So I don't know if that really shows up well for you guys. Put the light over here. So it's a little bit lighter. And we're going to see how close we are to our design. And I would say we have to go a lot lighter. So I'm going to cut some more white clay. And I might actually subtract some of this. And this is going to be a super dark blue. Not really super dark, but I think like around the eyeballs and stuff, I could use this color. And this isn't 100% mixed, so I'm just going to run this through here one more time. Do a smaller batch. Let's get them like this. Alright, so that's a pretty pure mix of color there. Ooh. Alright, that's just great. So if you drop your tools on a dirty floor, that's what happens. You get hairy brushes. Alright, it's back in here. Okay. Slice off some more white. Maybe about this much. Let's go a little bit more. Alright, so I'm going to flatten these together. So Randy says, I used to only make all clay sets, but have loosened up a bit. I just built a new set last week with a nicely patterned piece of cloth as fancy wallpaper. It looks great. Awesome. Yeah, your dancing grandma was really cool. That was really funny. I hope your client appreciated that, you know, the swinging boobs. Alright, so keep folding and folding and folding and folding. Yeah, you could just use your hands to do this if you don't have a pasta roller. I'm making somewhat of a large batch here of clay. This is not really I'm making a whole puppet out of this, so I think this will be enough. Just as long as the color is correct. I shouldn't have to add too much more clay to this. Too much more white clay. Kind of get in here and see. We're actually getting pretty close. Pretty close. Now I'm gonna have to add more white though. I can tell. Let's go like this much more. That was your client's idea? Okay. Misery is asking, isn't Claytoon also Vanagon? Yep, same company, same stuff. I'm not sure if they still use that name Claytoon anymore. They might. They kind of change stuff around all the time. And one of the things that a lot of my friends and I have noticed is that if you buy Claytoon clay, like their formula is not super consistent anymore, so a lot of people are trying to figure out how to improve it for animation purposes, and there's various ways to do it. I think Webster Colcord told me that he's using Don Carlson's Puppet Putty, and when I started getting involved in this, some people used to tell me that you add some mineral oil to your clay, and that helps to kind of like soften it up a bit. But and then you can also, if you want to make it more firm, you can add beeswax, melt it in with a double boiler, and stiffen it up just a bit. There's paraffin wax, beeswax. Beeswax is a softer but stickier kind of wax than paraffin. So there's ways to modify clay, but I tend to just go with whatever comes out of the package and try to adjust what I'm doing as opposed to trying to adjust the clay. Just trying to adapt to it. But if you really animate a lot with clay, you want to make sure that you're happy with what you're using too. So alright, so we are definitely approaching the color here. It's getting really close. Ronco is saying that dust and dirt is one of the reasons I never became a clay animator. Yeah, you have to be really clean about what you're doing. Always conscious of where you put your hands before you grab the puppet. Mike McKinney once told me the story that all the clay, like a lot of the clay animators, were coming up with this problem where their characters would turn blue after a while. They get all these like blue fibers, and they didn't know what was going on. And then somebody realized that, like what I'm doing here, my hands are getting all discolored, and I got clay, like here in my palm and probably under my fingernails now. So people would wipe their hands on their jeans and pick up the lint, and of course, jeans are mainly blue in color, and so their characters started to turn blue after a while. So it just depends on what you're touching, and But if you can animate a character cleanly, it looks awesome. Okay, let's see here. Alright, so that little piece of clay I just dropped, I had to throw away because it had dirt on it. Even though I sweep this floor and I try to keep it clean, never fails that there's some dust bunny or something that always shows up right when you don't want it to. Okay, so I think that this color is fairly well mixed. So here's the original color and here's the new color. And you can see it's, you know, it's not perfect, but this is going to be the darkest color of the character. So I've got kind of a even darker color still. This will be for accenting certain parts that I want to, like maybe inside the mouth, under the eyes. So really dark blue. A little bit lighter than what we started with. And so from here, what I want to do is I want to cut off maybe a third. Alright, so we got a third of this. And we're going to go even lighter still. So we're going to mix up a lighter color of this. So we can take our baby wipes, you know, kind of get our hands clean if we need to. And one of the bad parts about this clay is I'm actually allergic to it. I guess it's an allergic reaction, but what'll happen is if I don't wipe it off my hands, the oils will cause my fingers to get like little blisters, little microscopic blisters everywhere. And so I've learned that mineral oil is actually really not very good for your skin. It will defat your skin, which is a weird thing. So we're going to take some white. And we're going to add it to our lighter color here. And we're going to mix this up. And so this is going to be for like the belly area here, maybe the legs or the arms. I'm going to have like some kind of a pattern, like a natural looking pattern that maybe a frog would have on the underside of his legs and stuff. I think I might have it on the underside instead of the top. I think the underside is where frogs actually have that lighter color. So this isn't really a great representation, but yeah, so cleaning up your puppet in Photoshop is always possible. So if you get dirt and stuff like that and you want to make it nice, you can definitely use Photoshop or Krita or really any kind of free graphics program, like GIMP as well. I don't think I did that on Zombie Pirate Tales. I was really a clean freak fanatic on that, so didn't have any issues with that, luckily. But then again, my characters were not all white, so that's kind of like, that's an impossible thing to keep clean, is an all white clay puppet, I think. Here we go, just kind of folding it up, putting it back in there, making sure we have all the colors we need. And you can look at it and you can see, you know, if there's like a streak like that, just fold it over, maybe twice, stick it in there, and then, you know, once it seems like it's fairly mixed, you want to just, you know, put it in there a couple more times. just for good measure. Needs to be a little bit lighter, I can tell, so I'm going to add more white. More white clay. So, yep, this is the whole process of making new clay colors. A little bit slow, but you know, it's an important step. Yeah, you know, Randy makes a good point. Like, if you're watching something move, you're less likely to notice imperfections. Yes? AJ? You just made stuff. So eat what you just made. Alright? My son just made these things with his papa. It's like some kind of... Okay, come on. Alright, have a good night's sleep, mister.
Okay.
It's already late now, so don't forget to brush your teeth, okay?
Well, that does look cool what you're doing.
Well, thanks.
Okay.
Tomorrow, maybe when you get back from school, you can see what I did, okay?
Okay.
Alright, have a good night's sleep.
Good night.
Okay.
And then just feed it if it's okay if Jackson comes here.
No.
Okay. We're not really around anymore.
Okay, so. AJ, close the door. Alright, bye-bye. Good night. Come on, good boy. Go eat and brush your teeth, okay? Good night. Alright, so there's our colors. So we got dark, medium, and light. And I mean, I could probably go lighter still, but let's see. Just kind of looking at this and seeing if this is going to be appealing in colors. And I do have to go a little bit lighter. Gotta use your eyes. Gotta make sure you do it right. It's easy to get impatient doing this stage and you know, rushing through a project. But it's really important because whatever colors you make now are going to be what you use, and there's no going... Well, I guess you could say that you could kind of like change things halfway through, but and mix up new colors, but you're just going to spend more time and later anyway, so... So, Misery, are you gonna make a full-size girlfriend out of clay or something? There are people that do that, believe it or not. You can buy a silicone girlfriend on the internet nowadays. Which is strange, but people do it. see, so it's getting pretty close. Okay, almost done. Almost done with our clay colors here. Maybe just a few more times through our pasta roller. We'll be set. Maybe twice more. All right, last time. Okay. Here are our colors. That looks good to me there. So we got our dark color, the body, and the lighter parts. And we can always go lighter than this or a little bit darker. We have, you know, our original clay, which is the darkest. And it's easy, like what Randy was saying before, just make like a snake of clay out of this, and maybe add some white to it. So let's kind of, we'll just mix up this by hand so you guys can see how that turns out. So got our lighter color. Just kind of keep rolling it, maybe make a snake. Twist it up, fold it, smush it. Keep folding it. And this is how you can do it by hand. Alright. Pretty fast too, isn't it? So there it is, a little bit lighter. Okay. Yeah, somebody else mentioned that because I make these full-size head sculptures for people, and somebody wrote a comment that they want to make a doll out of Diana Ross. You know, like use the head. And by the way, I'm just cleaning my fingers here with this baby wipe because my hands are pretty dirty. But yeah, it's a big growing industry, I guess. And you know, a lot of artists gravitate towards that because people like to sculpt, and that's, you know, where the work is. So a lot of people do that kind of stuff. They don't usually tell their families, I guess, but one of my previous clients that I worked for, yeah, I still work for him. He hasn't like fired me or anything, and he wants me to do more stuff. But he has like a brother or like a cousin or something, or a nephew that works in that industry, you know, and does all kinds of weird stuff. Alright, so kind of got my hands cleaned up here a bit. Alright, so here's where we're going to have some fun. We've got our puppet. Let me first clear out this area a bit. Okay. So we got our design, we got our... And so before I get into sculpting, I should probably mention, for those who haven't seen this already, who weren't here the previous time, that this here is junk clay, okay? Oop, don't want to lose my eyeballs again. So we made our armature based on our design. And then what I did is, okay, hopefully we're focused. So I took scrap clay and I added it and bulked up this armature with it. And the reason for that is because, you know, when you have clay, you can recycle it, and instead of just throwing it away, I keep mine in like a cookie tin. I melt it down and just pour it in there and put the cover on, and that's that. And so this will actually save on clay, and I don't have to mix up as much of the other clay to sculpt it. I can just add it to the outside. So for now, I'm going to use this color, which is going to be for the body, and we're just going to start adding clay all over where it needs to go. And so the first place I'm probably going to add it is, I think, the legs, maybe. Let's see here. And Hoserlu, yep, it is. Welcome back. It is a pasta roller machine, and you can get them in any place that sells like baking goods or, you know, cake mixers, things like that. Let's see here. Also, let me zoom in some more, perhaps. Just so you guys also know, like what we did here is we melted this clay to the armature using a propane torch, and when it cools, it adheres really strongly to our armature, so it will not fall off so easily. And as I sculpt this, I need to make some measurements. And so I've got our dividers here. And so I'm going to measure the leg. So one of these legs here, I'll measure the... This is going to be just a rough estimate, but it's going to be about this wide. So I can translate this by, or that measurement, by sticking this on my sculpture, so I can aim for a certain size, and I can quickly add clay to our puppet and get a pretty good approximation of where I need to go with this. And let's see here. So I got a sculpting tool. Can push the clay on there, remeasure it, and so I can basically, I can either stick my tool on here and keep sticking it in there, and or I can just mark the clay in a rough sense where it needs to be. So I'm marking it on the body where this more rough clay is, scrap clay. And I know I need to be just a little bit above the base, and that should be good. So I don't really need to keep that tool there the whole time. I can stick my hands in here and make sure the shape looks good and turn my model. And as you sculpt, you don't really want to keep the model always straight from your face. You want to turn it, make sure it looks good from all angles, and looks, everything looks appropriate. You want to make sure both sides, when you add clay, you want to add clay to both sides at the same time as well, just to kind of keep the volume the same if possible. Now when I sculpt accurately, like a really like a full-scale head for somebody, and I charge them a lot of money for that, and I try to make the likeness exact, I will try to use certain tricks to make things look the same on both sides. But my favorite trick is to use Photoshop, and I'll mirror the image, and I will also like slice the image in half and overlay the left side by flipping the right side, overlay them onto each other in the center of the face. and I can see the symmetry that way, and I can like draw lines on there, and it's really helpful. But a really basic way to get the sides looking the same is to just use a mirror, and you put a mirror behind your character, and you turn the character around, and you see if you can see if there's differences pretty easily. Your brain picks those things out. For some reason, you can just see things better that way. I don't understand really what your brain does in the process. It's like an optical illusion. When you stare at your character for a long time, everything seems to like even out. So the symmetry seems normal, but everybody's face is different on both sides. Everybody's body has more fat on one side than the other. Bulges on one side compared to the other that are slight, but they're there, and you never notice it. It's just the way that your brain works. But if you take a person and flip their look at their picture in a mirror, if you're used to looking at them every day, they'll actually look different. Flip their image around and see what it looks like. It's kind of weird. So symmetry is important. But if you want something to look ugly, a lot of people, like if they have a zombie character or something that's supposed to be scary, a lot of times making the two sides different actually makes things look somewhat more either scary or deformed. So symmetry is kind of a neat thing. Like the more that you push the boundaries, you can make things look like a cartoon character, like a caricature, by really stretching things out. So if you have somebody that has an expression on their face and you sculpt it, and you really make one side a lot higher than the other, sometimes it still looks recognizable as that character, as that person. But it adds more expression, and so animators will tend to animate faces, and they will exaggerate the lips and the jaw, and even though they exaggerate, it still appears fairly normal. So that's what's cool about clay, is you can really push the boundaries. I mean, like the Domino's Pizza Noid, if you watch some Domino's Pizza Noid commercials on YouTube and you freeze frame his face during the animation, you'll notice that the animators can really push that character really far, and it just looks great. So welcome, Dylan's Productions. Welcome to the show. So we just mixed up some clay using a pasta roller, and now we're slowly adding the clay to our character here. So here he is. That's what it looks like. And we could add the eyeballs on top, but we're not going to do that yet. We're just going to sculpt for now. Add some clay to the feet. All right. Well, right now, so what we did is we made our armature in, like, I guess part 1 of this character. It's like a series of videos, so we're up to part 5 right now. So I made the armature, or designed the character. I guess would have been part 1, and then part 2 would have been the armature. And we also made some eyeballs as well. So here's some eyeballs. And we used the mold to make those. So let's see. Jason says that I read somewhere of a scientific study of typical beauty, and their conclusion was the only thing all beautiful faces had in common was symmetry. Ah, okay. Well, I'm sure there's gotta be more to it than that. If you have really blotchy skin, like, people don't really like that, I guess. But yeah, symmetry plays a really big part in what people perceive as beautiful. Oops. So these legs look pretty horrible at the moment. They don't have much shape yet, but what you want to do is you want to look at what you got going on. Kind of step back sometimes. Don't get your head too close to your character. Look at the general shape. Turn your character and make sure the sides are. Like if I turn it this way, we got a big mess. So we're gonna go over this carefully and add some shapes. Oop, is that right? Yeah. Thought I grabbed the wrong clay there for a minute. Wrong colored clay, but it's the right color. A young Santa? Let's see here. So, kind of got some big feet going on. See if that's focused. Alright, so what time is it now? It is almost 9 o'clock. Oh my god. 1 hour is never enough. So we might have to pick up where we left off. But this is it's going to be fun, I think, next week, because we're going to start getting probably into the body and the arms. And so I might, after tonight, well, see, the problem is I have actual paid sculpting work to do, so I was going to say I could probably continue working on this a little bit, but I guess I'll just keep working on it every week with you guys. So you learn the entire process. There's a lot more to sculpting than what you see here. We're going to have to go through and, of course, we're going to smooth all this as well as we go along. Okay. So I'm going to add some clay to the bottom of the feet as well. Let's do this. So you guys can see. Yeah, I was thinking, Dylan, about that. Like, am I going to animate this and for you guys? That would be pretty difficult. That's going to be hard because all of my computer is here and my animation setup is in the garage, and I don't think I have a way to do that live. But that would be fun if I could do that in here somehow. And the camera that I'm using here right now is actually what I use to animate with. So how am I going to do a live video with one camera? I don't know. Unless I like use I have a web camera, so maybe I can just use that. I don't know. Let's see here. So here's where the feet will get covered in clay. So this is definitely not perfect, you know. This is going to require a lot more sculpting. But I think that generally the shape will be pretty good as we keep refining everything. And so we can see that, you know, obviously the legs require a lot more meat. Let's see, here's the feet. Feet are just about the right width, which is good. Make like a recording of some of it and then play it live of the animation. It's possible. I'll be able to do that. I think as we get closer to finishing our character, I could definitely consider that for sure. Okay, so we got like our feet and legs, and so there's like this bend at the knees where I think we need to extend the leg out further. Let me see, about how far is that? Yeah, I need to extend these legs out further at the knees because it's not looking quite right there. It doesn't really have any kind of lower legs. They're really stubby lower legs. So he's almost all upper leg and feet, and then he's got like these little muscles in the back here. And also, you see here, double check. Thinking maybe. Yeah, it's a good idea to maybe do that. Yeah, I've got a a camcorder, so that's definitely possible. Definitely possible. Of course, it wouldn't be truly live, but if you guys are interested, I could. Maybe I'll need to get somebody to like say a simple line like ribbit, like a frog would say, ribbit, and then just animate that or something simple that you can see the process at least. All in time lapse. Ooh, that would be cool. Okay. So yeah, you can see bulking in all this area with clay, and the final shape is, you know, up in the air still. Let's see, what time is it? Okay, 9 o'clock already. So when I'm sculpting, you know, I'm kind of thinking about how it looks, and nothing is ever set in stone when you sculpt something freely like this. Like, we're not trying to, and we're trying to stick to the design, but we're not really locked into it. You know, we can change it if we want to. So as we go along, we just want to make sure there's appeal, it looks nice, it makes kind of sense anatomically in some ways. Like, you don't want it to be, like, for example, on these feet, I definitely need to have like little heel bones of some sort, maybe. A natural foot shape, so a little bit of an arch. I don't want the feet to be totally flat. So we'll add some arches. So Dylan's been working in stop motion for 4 years. Cool. It's a good amount of time. Okay, so the other thing about symmetry is if you want to repeat certain designs, like if you're sculpting on, if you're sort of spending a lot of time on one side of your character and you want to repeat that shape on the other side, you can do so with your calipers or your dividers, like this, and then transfer the measurements. That's one way to also get symmetry in your character. So what I did there is just, I want to make sure that the upper leg is the same length as the other. And another thing to do is, as I'm sculpting, sometimes you'll sculpt in straight lines, like geometric shapes. So like here we have like a flat area right where the knee is, and it kind of goes into an angular shape there towards the tip of the knee. So I'll do that on both sides, and that way I can make measurements. So I can go here and say, okay, that's that long, and that's that long, so it's the same. Knees, okay. Yeah. Alright, so what else? And that's probably pretty good for tonight. I think our legs are you know, pretty close to what we want to do. Still have a lot of detail work to get into, like the toes, and the final foot shape has to be honed in. I might actually load up a photo of a real foot just for reference, so that I can make it, you know, look pretty good. And with regards to the back of the puppet, you know, you can see here, like, this leg is really rough back here. So again, like I said before, you want to make sure that you constantly turn your character, make sure that everything looks good from all angles. Now if you're doing this for a film where the camera is not going to see the back of your character, back of the puppet, you don't really have to do anything to that as long as the front part looks good. But I don't really want to do that with this character. I want to, you know, sculpt the whole thing. Even though if I'm animating this, I probably won't see the back. But, you know, I just want to make it look neat. I want it to look nice. But in general, if you're, you know, like if you're working on a real production and you're crunched for time, that would be sort of what you would do, is you would not sculpt the parts that you don't see. Alright, so anyway, that does wrap up our show for tonight. Like I say, we still have a long way to go with our sculpting. But now that we have the clay colors mixed up, and hopefully you guys will remember these are the colors. So it did take some time. It took us about a half an hour to do. So next week we'll have a whole hour to just focus, strictly on sculpting. So we should get a lot done. All right. Oops. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. See you all next week.